1891, Turkey, a mountain near the ancient city of Ephesus. Three Catholic priests are climbing, sweating, exhausted. They have been searching for hours, days actually. They are looking for something that, according to every historian, every scholar, every rational person, does not exist. A house. Not just any house. The house where the Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ, spent her final years. Where she died. The problem? This house has been lost for 1800 years. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody has seen it. Most people do not even believe it exists. But these priests have a map. Not a real map. A description. Written by a German nun who never left her bedroom. A woman who never traveled. Never saw Turkey. Never even looked at a map. But somehow, impossibly, she described this house in vivid detail. The location, the structure, the view, everything. And now, after days of searching, one of the priests stops, points ahead. Through the trees, barely visible, stone walls, ruins. They push through the brush, their hearts racing. And then they see it. A small stone house, partially collapsed, covered in centuries of growth, and it matches the description. Perfectly. One of the priests falls to his knees. Another starts crying. Because they have just found something that should not exist. The last home of the Virgin Mary, hidden for nearly 2,000 years. This is the story of that house. How it was lost. How it was found. And why, right now, today, 2 million people visit it every single year. Christians, Muslims, believers, skeptics, all coming to stand in the place where the mother of Jesus took her final breath. This is not just history. This is mystery. This is faith. This is the impossible becoming real. Let us begin. To understand how this house was found, we need to go back. 1774, Germany. A small farming village called Coesfeld. A girl is born. Anna Katharina Emmerich. She grows up poor. Very poor. The daughter of farmers. No education, no books. Just hard work and prayer. But even as a child, she is different. She claims to see things, visions, angels, religious figures. Her parents think she is imaginative. Her neighbors think she is strange. But Katerina believes what she sees is real. By age 28, she joins an Augustinian convent, becomes a nun, lives a quiet, simple life of prayer and service. And then, in 1802, everything changes. She gets sick. Not just sick, bedridden. Completely. For 12 years. She can barely move, barely eat. She is wasting away, but during those 12 years, trapped in that bed, something extraordinary starts happening. The visions intensify. She starts seeing, in vivid cinematic detail, the life of Jesus Christ. His birth in Bethlehem, his childhood in Nazareth, his ministry in Galilee, his miracles, his teachings, his crucifixion in Jerusalem. But these are not just hazy dreams. These are detailed, specific. She describes the streets, the buildings, the people, the smells, the colors, things she could not possibly know. And she does not just see Jesus, she sees his mother, Mary. She sees Mary as a young girl, as a mother, as a widow. And she sees what happened to Mary after Jesus died. Now, here is where it gets important. Most people in the 1800s believed Mary stayed in Jerusalem after the crucifixion, that she died there, that her tomb was somewhere in the Holy Land. But Katharina sees something different. She sees Mary leaving Jerusalem, traveling, being taken away by the Apostle John, one of Jesus' closest disciples. And where does John take her? To a city called Ephesus, on the western coast of modern-day Turkey. Why Ephesus? Because it was far from Jerusalem, far from Roman persecution, a safe place where early Christians were gathering in secret. And Katharina sees Mary living there, not in the city itself, but in the mountains nearby, in a small stone house. And then, this is where it gets wild. Katharina starts describing this house, in detail, as if she is standing right there, looking at it. She says it is built of stone, rectangular, 3 rooms, a living area, a bedroom, and a small prayer space. There is a fireplace, made of stone blocks. The house faces south, looking down at the city of Ephesus in the valley below. There are trees surrounding it, mostly pines and oaks. There is a spring nearby, fresh water, drinkable. The walls are thick, to keep out the heat in summer and the cold in winter. She even describes the path leading up to it, a narrow, rocky trail. She describes everything. Now remember, Katharina Emmerich has never been to Turkey, has never been to Ephesus, has never traveled outside of Germany. She has never seen a picture of Ephesus. There were no photographs back then, no internet, no Google Earth. And yet, she is describing a specific location, a specific house, with details that would make any architect jealous. So what happens? A priest named Clemens Brentano hears about her. He is a writer, a poet, and he is fascinated. He visits Katharina, sits by her bed, and for years, from 1818 until her death in 1824, he writes down everything she says, every vision, every detail, every word. He fills thousands of pages. And when Katharina dies in 1824, Brentano spends the next decade organizing her visions into a book. It is published in 1833. The title, The Life of the Blessed Virgin Mary. The book spreads across Europe. Religious communities read it, debate it. Some people are deeply moved. Some are skeptical. But most people think it is just mysticism. Beautiful, poetic, inspiring, but not real. Just a sick woman's dreams. For 67 years, that is all it is. Until 1891, when someone decides to actually check. If this video is already blowing your mind, if you are sitting there thinking, wait, how is this possible? Hit that like button. Because we are just getting started, and trust me, what happens next is even crazier. 1881, Smyrna, modern-day Izmir, Turkey. A French priest named Abbé Julien Gouillet is living here. He is a missionary, serving the small Catholic community in the region. And one day, he picks up a book, The Life of the Blessed Virgin Mary. He reads Katharina's descriptions of Mary's house in Ephesus. And something clicks. He thinks, what if she was right? What if this house actually exists? Now, most people would dismiss this. A vision from a bedridden nun 50 years ago? Come on. But Gouillet is not most people. He is curious, persistent, and he has time, so he starts investigating. He travels to Ephesus, talks to locals, Greek families, Turkish families, anyone who has lived in the area for generations. He asks, do you know of any old Christian sites in the mountains? Any ruins? Any places that have been considered sacred? And slowly he starts hearing stories. An old Greek woman tells him about a place in the mountains, a ruin. Her grandmother used to go there to pray. A Turkish man mentions a spot locals call Panaya Kapulu, the doorway of the Virgin. People have been visiting it for generations, lighting candles, leaving offerings. But nobody knows why, nobody knows the history. It is just tradition. Gouillet's heart starts racing. He asks for directions, gets rough descriptions, and in 1881 he decides to go see for himself. He hikes into the mountains south of Ephesus. The terrain is rough, rocky paths, dense forest, no real trails. He climbs for hours, and then, through the trees, he sees something. Stone walls, old, ancient, partially collapsed, a ruin. He pushes through the vegetation, gets closer, and his breath catches. Because what he is looking at matches Katerina's description. A small stone structure, rectangular, 3 sections, built into the hillside, a view of the valley below, where Ephesus would have been. Trees all around, pines, oaks. And nearby, he hears it, running water, a spring. Gouye stands there, stunned. This is it. Or at least, it might be. But he is just one priest, one witness. He needs others to see this, to confirm it. So he documents everything, takes notes, makes sketches, and when he returns to Smyrna, he starts telling people. But here is the problem. Not many people believe him. They think he is seeing what he wants to see, that he has been influenced by Katerina's book, that he is projecting. So for 10 years, a full decade, the house remains forgotten until 1891, when a more official expedition is organized. This time, it is not just one priest, it is a team. Lazarist missionaries, Catholic priests, and 2 sisters from the Daughters of Charity order. They are experienced. They are skeptical. They are not going to just accept this based on one man's word. They read Katerina's descriptions again, study the details, and then they set out. July 29th, 1891. They climb the same mountain, follow the same rough paths, and they find it. The same ruin Gouye found 10 years earlier. And here's where it gets interesting. They start comparing. They pull out Katerina's written descriptions, and they go through them, point by point. Katerina said, "The house is built of rectangular stones. The ruin, rectangular stones." Check. Katerina said, "It has 3 sections, a living area, a bedroom, and a prayer space." The ruin, 3 distinct sections, visible in the foundation. Check. Katerina said, "There's a fireplace made of stone." The ruin, remnants of a stone hearth, still visible. Check. Katerina said, "The house faces south with a view of Ephesus below." The ruin faces south. Clear view of the valley where ancient Ephesus once stood. Check. Katerina said, "There is a spring nearby with fresh water." The ruin, a natural spring. 50 meters away, still flowing. Check. Every single detail matches. The expedition team is stunned. One of the sisters later writes, "We stood there in silence because we realized this woman, who never left Germany, who never saw this place, described it perfectly." But they are not done yet. They need proof. Real proof. So they start excavating. Carefully. They bring in local workers. They dig around the foundation. They study the construction. And here is what they find. The foundation stones date back to the 1st century AD, right when Mary would have been alive, somewhere between 40 and 50 AD. The building technique matches early Christian architecture from that period. And, this is crucial, there is evidence that this site has been continuously venerated, meaning people have been coming here, treating it as sacred, for centuries. Long before Katerina's visions, local Orthodox Christians have been making pilgrimages here for generations. They did not know why. They just knew it was holy. The expedition sends their findings back to the church. And in 1896, after careful study, the Vatican officially recognizes the site. This is the house of the Virgin Mary, where she lived, where she prayed, where she died, hidden for 1800 years. Found because a bedridden nun in Germany saw it in a vision, And here is the question nobody can answer. How? How did she know? Once the Vatican confirms the site, everything changes. Word spreads. Newspapers pick it up. Religious journals publish articles. The House of the Virgin Mary, found in Turkey. At first, it is just a trickle, a few dozen pilgrims a year, mostly local Christians, Greeks, Armenians. But by the early 1900s, the numbers grow. Hundreds, then thousands. Catholics from Europe, Orthodox believers from Russia, Protestants from America, all coming to see this tiny house in the mountains. All coming to stand where Mary stood. They light candles. They pray. They weep. Because this is not just a historical site. This is personal. This is the mother of Jesus, the woman who said yes to God, who gave birth to the Savior of Christianity, who watched her son die on a cross. And this is where she came afterward, where she lived out her final years, in peace, in quiet, in this small house on a mountain. People feel something here. They describe it in letters, in journals. I felt her presence. I felt peace. I felt close to God. And then, the popes start coming. 1967, Pope Paul VI. He is the first pope to visit. This is a massive deal. Popes do not travel much back then. And for a pope to come to Turkey, a Muslim-majority country, to visit a Christian holy site, unprecedented. Paul VI arrives. He walks through the house, kneels before the altar, prays, and when he leaves, he makes a statement. This place is holy. This is where the Virgin Mary lived, and it should be a place of pilgrimage for all Christians. The Catholic Church officially endorses it, and the pilgrimage numbers explode. 1979, Pope John Paul II. He comes to Turkey, and one of his stops, the House of the Virgin Mary. He celebrates Mass there. Thousands of people attend. It is broadcast on television. Millions watch. John Paul II calls it a place of profound spiritual significance. And he does something interesting. He invites Muslims to honor Mary here too. Because in Islam, Mary, Maryam, is deeply revered. She is mentioned more times in the Quran than in the New Testament. She has her own chapter, Surah Maryam. She is considered one of the greatest women in Islamic history. And so John Paul II says, this house belongs to all who honor Mary, Christian or Muslim. It is a radical statement, and it works. Muslims start visiting, not just a few, thousands. Turkish Muslims, Arab Muslims, pilgrims from across the Islamic world. They come to honor Maryam, to pray, to pay respects. And so you have this extraordinary thing happening. At this tiny house on a mountain in Turkey, Christians and Muslims are praying side by side, lighting candles together, tying prayer cloths on the wishing wall together. It is one of the only places on earth where this happens regularly, where two faiths come together, not in conflict, but in reverence. 2006, Pope Benedict XVI. He visits. The third pope to come here. He walks through the house, reflects, prays, and he calls it a place of prayer, reflection, and encounter. 3 popes, over 4 decades, all saying the same thing. This place matters. If you are feeling something right now, if this story is hitting deeper than you expected, hit that like button. Share this video, because stories like this need to be told, and there is still more to come. So what is the house actually like? Let me take you inside. Today, the house has been partially restored. Not rebuilt, restored. They kept the original stones, the original foundation, the original layout. But they have stabilized it, made it safe, made it accessible for the millions of pilgrims who visit every year. You approach the house from below. There is a paved path now. It winds up the mountain through trees. As you walk, you pass the Stations of the Cross. Small shrines. Pilgrims stop at each one. Pray. Reflect. And then you see it. The house. It is small. Smaller than you would imagine. Simple stone walls. A red tile roof. That part is modern to protect the structure. But the walls, those are original. 2,000 years old. You walk up to the entrance. There is a small courtyard. Stone pavers. And then you step inside. The first thing that hits you is the silence. Even when there are dozens of people inside, it feels quiet, reverent. The interior is divided into 3 sections, just like Katharina described. The first room, the main living area. This is where Mary would have spent most of her time. There's now a small altar here, a statue of Mary, candles, hundreds of candles, lit by visitors from around the world. The walls are plain, white plaster over ancient stone. The floor is stone, worn smooth by 2,000 years of feet. You can see where the original fireplace would have been. The hearth, where Mary would have cooked, where she would have warmed herself in winter. The second section, a smaller room. This is believed to be Mary's bedroom. It is tiny, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. There is a simple stone platform where her bed would have been. Pilgrims stand here in silence. Some cry, because this is where she slept, where she woke up every morning, where she prayed in the night. The third section, the prayer room, even smaller. Just a niche, really. There is a small altar here too. More candles, flowers. This is where Mary would have prayed, alone, every day, praying for her son, for the disciples, for the world. You step back outside, and if you walk around to the side of the house, you see something incredible. A wall, completely covered with pieces of cloth, thousands of them, tied to the wall, hanging, overlapping, in every color imaginable. This is the wishing wall. Pilgrims tie pieces of cloth here. Each one represents a prayer, a wish, a hope. Some are written on names, dates, messages. Please heal my mother. Thank you for my daughter. I am lost. Help me find my way. Simple prayers, desperate prayers, grateful prayers. The wall is constantly full. When it gets too crowded, the staff carefully removes the older cloths, but they do not throw them away. They are blessed and buried on the grounds. Because every single one of those cloths represents someone's heart. You walk a little further. There's the spring, still flowing, after 2,000 years. A small stone fountain now marks it. Pilgrims fill bottles, drink from it. Some say the water has healing properties. There are stories, testimonies. True or not, people believe. And maybe that is what matters. And then you stop. Turn around, look at the view. From here, from this house, you can see the valley below, where ancient Ephesus once stood. You can see the ruins in the distance, the amphitheater, the library of Celsus. Let us talk about the elephant in the room. How did Anna Katharina Emmerich know? How did a woman who never left her bed in Germany, who never traveled, who never saw a map, who had no access to historical records, describe this house in perfect detail? There are 3 explanations. Explanation 1, coincidence. Skeptics say, maybe she just got lucky. Maybe she described a generic first-century house, and people found a ruin that happened to match. But here is the problem with that. Her descriptions were not generic. They were specific. She did not just say a house in Turkey. She said a house in the mountains south of Ephesus. She did not just say a stone house. She described the layout. 3 rooms, rectangular, a fireplace, a spring nearby, a view of the valley. And she was right. about all of it. The odds of that being coincidence? Astronomically low. Explanation 2. Historical research. Some scholars suggest maybe Katerina had access to historical texts, ancient writings, early Christian traditions that mentioned Mary going to Ephesus. And yes, there are ancient sources that mention this. The Gospel of John hints that John took Mary with him after the crucifixion. Early church fathers, Irenaeus, Eusebius, mention traditions that Mary lived in Ephesus. But here's the thing. These sources do not describe a house. They do not give locations. They do not provide details. And Katerina was illiterate. She could not read Latin or Greek. She had no access to theological libraries. So how would she know? Explanation. 3. Divine revelation. This is what believers say, that Katerina's visions were real, that God showed her these things, that this was a miracle. And honestly, when you look at the evidence, when you see how accurate her descriptions were, it is hard to dismiss this completely. Because something extraordinary happened here. Either a bedridden, uneducated nun in Germany somehow accessed detailed historical and geographical information she could not possibly have had, or she saw something that cannot be explained by natural means. You decide. But the fact remains. She described a house, and that exact house was found. Exactly where she said it would be. And now, nearly 2 million people visit it every year. Christians, Muslims, historians, tourists, all standing in the same small house, all asking the same question. How? Here is why this story is bigger than just a house. In a world that is increasingly divided by religion, by politics, by belief, this house does something incredible. It brings people together. Christians come here to honor Mary, the mother of their Savior. Muslims come here to honor Maryam, one of the greatest women in Islamic tradition. And they stand side by side, they pray, they light candles, they tie cloths on the wishing wall. They do not argue about theology. They do not debate, they do not fight. They simply honor a woman who suffered, who loved, who believed. And in that moment, in that tiny house on a mountain, the divisions fade. That is rare. That is precious. That is worth protecting. This house is not just about the past. It is about what is possible. It is proof that sacred spaces can be shared, that reverence does not have to be exclusive, that different faiths can meet in peace. And maybe that is the real miracle, not how the house was found, but what it does to the people who visit. It makes them stop, breathe, reflect. In a world that moves too fast, this place makes you slow down. In a world that shouts too loud, this place makes you whisper. In a world that divides too easily, this place brings you together. Mary's last home. Hidden for 1,800 years. Found by a woman who never left her bed. Visited by millions. Honored by two faiths. And still standing. After 2,000 years. If that is not a miracle, I do not know what is. So here's my question for you. Would you go? Would you make the pilgrimage? Would you climb that mountain, step into that tiny house, and feel whatever it is people feel there? Drop a comment. Tell me. Because I want to know. Have you been? Are you planning to go? What does this story mean to you? And if this video moved you, if you learned something, if you felt something, hit that like button. It helps more people discover stories like this. Stories that matter. Stories that inspire. Stories that remind us that history is not just about dates and facts. It is about real people, real faith, real mysteries. And if you want more deep dives, more forgotten histories, more stories that will make you see the world differently, subscribe, hit that bell, because next time we are going somewhere even more unexpected. Thanks for watching, and remember, The most powerful places on Earth are not always the loudest. Sometimes they are the quiet ones, the ones where history whispers.